So what's this session about? So we're partnering with Respect Me for this session following Anti-Bullying Week last week. So this session should help you to understand more about Respect Me as an organisation, how to help you to respond and feel confidence and support your child if they're affected by bullying, understand how bullying can be prevented, where you can get help if you need it, and how looking at how parents and parent groups can help to challenge bullying and create a positive, inclusive school community which welcomes everyone. So that's the aims for tonight's session. I just want to give you a little bit of information about Connect because I know that some people are here and perhaps are not so familiar with us as an organisation. So we are a charity organisation. We're the only charity and membership organisation for parent groups in Scotland. We currently have 26 local authorities that take out a membership for their parent councils across Scotland. And then for other parent councils in the other local authorities, other parent groups like parent-teacher associations, other parent-led groups, they can also take out their own membership with us or even individual parents too. So we're all about partnerships and supporting partnerships in education, ensuring the voice of parents is heard in all matters relating to education. We're completely independent, but we do work in partnership with other organisations like we are with Respect Me tonight. We also work closely with the Scottish Government and COSLA, local authorities, and really any organisation that's willing to support these partnerships that we are keen to support as well. So we, as I say, are a membership organisation. We speak to our members regularly. That's how we can learn and understand what's happening, what your experiences are on the ground. We use that to influence our own work and also that of others. So we do have a parent carer survey running just now, and it's about relationships, rights and communication, and it's especially about your homeschool partnerships and how they're going. So we would love everybody to fill in this survey for us. It's not so long, it's not too big. And just to give us that idea of what it's like on the ground, how are your relationships going just now? So please click the survey link when you get the slides out later on, and share it around with your parent friends as well. So the last thing just to say, if you are a Connect member, then you do have access to very kind of specific and bespoke types of support and services. So we do offer advice to parent groups across Scotland. We have an email service, we have a closed Facebook group for our members, and we offer information sessions like this one weekly on a term time, covering a variety of topics, supporting parents and parent groups within their school communities. We also have monthly e-newsletters that you can sign up for, but we have Facebook, X and Instagram pages that everyone can have a look at as well, and just kind of stay up to date with what we are sharing in terms of education parents within Scotland. So please have a look at some of these social media pages, and if you do want more information about Connect membership, then please do get in contact with us. So that's enough from me. You're all here to hear about Respect Me and the anti-bullying service in Scotland. So I'm going to hand you over now to Lorraine Glass, who is the director of Respect Me. I'm sure you'll all join me in welcoming Lorraine this evening and saying thank you so much for spending your evening with us and taking us through this PowerPoint presentation. So thank you so much, and I'll hand over to you and just let me know when you want me to move the slides on, Lorraine. Thank you.
That's lovely. Thanks so much, Diane. And I'll put my camera off in a moment as well too. But I just wanted to say hello to everyone here. Like, I'm a real person. I'm not a bot. And to thank you back in return. It's a great opportunity for us to be working alongside Connect on this session tonight, and I'm grateful for that. And good to have everyone on board. We've got a good audience. So I'm just going to get started. But I'll switch this camera off now. Here we go. So, sorry, Diane, can you just stick to the first slide? Just to say a wee bit about Respect Me for anyone who doesn't know who we are. So our service is wholly funded by the Scottish Government. We're jointly managed by Scottish Action for Mental Health and LGBT Youth Scotland. And we exist to build capacity of adults, any adults in Scotland who have got a role to play in the life of a child or a young person. So whether they work with children or care for children, we try to build capacity and confidence and competence to respond if a child that you know is being bullied. So that's our role. So we do a fair bit of work with parents and carers, but also professionals and teachers, a big audience for us, as you can imagine, social workers, youth workers, sports coaches, any adult really who's working with children, because where there are children, there will be conflict, and we know that. So we try to equip adults with the tools to respond well, and actually to prevent bullying from happening in the first place, because that is the best anti-bullying intervention that there can be. But inevitably there will be some bullying, so learning skills to respond well to it is helpful for the children involved. And just to give you an idea of the scope and scale of the issue in Scotland, the latest health and wellbeing census in 21-22 surveyed just over 100,000 children, and of those 100,000 children in 16 of Scotland's local authorities, between primary 5 and S3, 31% of them said they were being bullied. It's a frightening number. It's so significant. If you think of a classroom, potentially 10 children in that class at any one time are experiencing bullying. Set it in context, globally, internationally, that same number applies. There seems to be a sort of 30% of children pretty much everywhere are getting bullied worldwide. These are the figures from UNESCO as well that bear that out. There are some countries that peak above that, some marginally below, but not that much. So this is, what we're kind of dealing with. It is an absolutely wicked problem. And if we could fix it, we would have done it by now. So it just continues to perpetuate, which is why sessions like tonight and the advice we can offer through our website and other sources can be really helpful. Thanks, Diane. So just a wee bit about, for tonight, we've got an hour, it's going to fly by. I'll try and speak quite quickly and get to the end as fast as I can so that we've got space for questions. But what we're going to try and do tonight is just understand what we mean by bullying in Scotland. We've got quite a unique definition, and it's set out in the newly published Scottish Government guidance document. That was only launched last Wednesday, so it's hot off the press. The link is in the chat. I would encourage you to have a wee look at it. It's a lengthy document, but it's a good read. It's very meaningful. It's been thoughtfully put together, and there is a section on engagement with parents and carers within it, so it kind of sets out what you might expect as a parent or carer when engaging with your school or a club that your child is in. I want to talk a wee bit about how to respond well so that you feel confident to support your child if they're being affected by bullying, and also to understand a bit about how bullying can be prevented in the first place. And that's probably less for you to do, but maybe more for talking to your schools about some of the things that they might be able to do. And we'll also offer some help, some advice about where to go to get help if you need that as well. I think it's fair to say that, when we talk about bullying, it can bring up really difficult feelings. It's triggering, it can trigger memories from the past. When we get to be adults, it's unlikely that we've been untouched by bullying. We've seen it, we've done it, we've had it done to us. Few of us escape. It's a really, prevalent issue. So look after yourself in the session. If you need to take a wee break away from the screen, just do that. So that's us for that slide, Diane, if you can move me on, please. Just for context in Scotland, bullying is absolutely a children's rights issue. Children who are being bullied have their rights compromised, all of them. And the context in Scotland is obviously the UNCRC, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which sets out, all of the articles where, and although there is not a specific one that says your child has a right not to be bullied, the articles do say things like your child's got a right to, be educated in a safe environment, a right to participation, a right to development, a right to survival, and all of these rights can be compromised for bullied children. And likewise, the Scottish GIRFEC policy, where wellbeing indicators are included. You'll maybe be familiar with Shannari indicators. They'll be used in your children's schools to measure wellbeing, and so safe, happy, achieving, respected, included. All of those markers are there, and every single one of them can be affected if your child's being bullied. Their well-being will dip if they're being bullied. And finally, on the screen, we've got, just an image of the guidance, the Scottish Government guidance itself, which sets out a blueprint for organisations in Scotland to follow. We're looking for national consistency, an approach to anti-bullying that is followed in every single school, in every single local authority, and in every youth club and place that children go. It's a massive ambition, but the game plan is so that children know that if they're being bullied and they disclose that, they will be met with a consistent and coherent response from the adults in that setting. Thanks, Diane. So, why should we bother addressing bullying? It's an issue that's been about for decades. I say it's not going away, 30%, big number. But in terms of why we should be looking at this as a significant issue, we know that bullying has hugely harmful impacts, and they're set out there on the slide, quite extreme, at the extreme end of poor mental health issues. And we also know that those impacts can be lasting. They can last right through to adulthood. Bullying has quite a long tail. And I know that when we speak to adults about their childhood experience of bullying, they tell us, that they can remember vividly the day that it happened, who was there, what was happening, all of the, really sort of visceral reaction to the day that it all went wrong and the day that something bad happened and they were hurt. And we also know that bullying can affect attainment. You can't focus on your lessons in school when your mind is worrying about what's going to happen in the playground, what's going to happen when I'm on my way home from school, what if it goes online. So that bit of the brain, the frontal cortex, doesn't work when we're under stress. We all know that. So the outcome for that is just, lowering children's confidence. They don't want to go to school. But it also limits their aspirations because they start to internalise messages about not being good enough. I can't do that. Nobody likes me. So it's a really serious matter. On the upside, we know that getting really good early support can absolutely reduce those harmful impacts. Early intervention is key to bullying, and it kind of fits with the definition, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But certainly, even for you as parents, nobody knows your child better than you know your child. You will see them every day, you know their normal kind of way, their personality, how they are. And any shift in that, you'll notice it. And you'll notice if they start to talk about things like, oh, I don't want to go to school, or the morning tummy sore, all the things that we know that it's not always an indicator of bullying, but it can be, and it's something for you just to be alert to. And again, we've got another slide on that later. And simply to say, we've all got a role to play, in trying to stop bullying. It's a whole school community approach that is required. We need the teachers on board, we need parents and carers, and we also need the children and young people. There is nothing like children's voice to start to sort of shift cultures. And, we've just come out of Anti-Bullying Week. The theme was respect. I don't know if you've been exposed to that, if your children have been talking about things that have been going on in their classrooms. But we've had a phenomenal response. We know that every single local authority engaged in the Anti-Bullying Week this year. 900 schools from across Scotland participated. They signed up to our website, they downloaded resources, and almost 500,000 children were reached as a consequence. So I suppose what that tells us as a service is there is a huge interest in the topic, but also teachers want to help. They want things to be better. It's in their interest for things to be better. If they can prevent bullying and respond to it well, there's, less needs to be recorded, and less needs to be reported, and so on. So it is literally a whole village task. Thanks, Diane. Okay, so the new national guidance has set out the definition of bullying, and it's a slight change to the previous one, but it's a change of language rather than a change of principle. So the content is largely the same, but in the previous guidance there was the way we used the language of agency to describe what happens to children sometimes when they're bullied. They lose agency. And the feedback was that, some adults didn't really understand that term, professionals didn't always get it, and children struggled with it as well. So what we're trying to do in this guidance iteration is disentangle that a bit. So what we've said, to be specific about what we mean by agency. So we talk about bullying can be face-to-face or it can be online behaviour, but it impacts on a person's sense of physical and emotional safety. It affects their capacity to feel in control of their life and be able to respond effectively to the situation they're in. Because what children have told us is that when they're getting bullied, it almost kind of freezes them. They get stuck. They don't know what to do. And they don't know how to make it better. And they're frightened. Obviously, they're frightened because they've been bullied. So trying to speak out and get help for the situation is sometimes really difficult for them. And in the second paragraph there, this is exactly largely as it was in the previous guidance. The themes of repetition and intention are there. So what we're saying is bullying behaviour, it doesn't need to be a repeated act or intended to cause harm for it to have an impact. And for some of you, that might sound a bit surprising. Traditional definitions of bullying, always used to say it's got to be repeated and it's got to be intended to cause harm, or else it's not bullying. And in Scotland, we dispensed with that 15 years ago. This is not new. We have taken a lead from children and young people who told us that actually a one-off incident can have a massive impact. And the thing about a one-off is you never know it's a one-off. So there's always a fear and anticipation that this could happen again to me. Every time I'm in that bit of the playground, or every time I see that person, there's a worry that it could be repeated, even if it never is. And with intention, intent is really difficult to prove. Those of us who, have children know that when you challenge them on negative behaviour, they're quite likely to say, but I didn't mean it, as if that kind of wipes it out. It negates whatever they've just done. And in an effort to help teachers and practitioners to respond to that, we say, look, don't focus on intent. It might have been intended, it might not, but actually it's less relevant. What is relevant is, what impact has it had on that child? How's it affecting them? How have they been harmed? How is it affecting their everyday life in school? Focus on that bit, focus on the behaviour and focus on the impact and deal with that. Because we know that, the behaviour that, constitutes bullying, it can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be verbal, and it leaves people feeling hurt, threatened, frightened and left out. So this is how we are defining bullying nationally in Scotland, and over time every single local authority will adopt that definition and have it in their policy documents. Thanks, Diane. And just looking at, I think I don't need to tell you what bullying behaviours are. We've all seen them, as I say, and this list here just kind of tries to kind of capture some of the things that children experience when they're being bullied. And as you can see, it's horrible. Any one of these behaviours by themselves would be really, really difficult for a child to cope with. And often it's lots of these behaviours that are all coming at the one time. So physical bullying is probably less common now, as well. And when we talk about physical bullying, it was actually very difficult to get this into the new guidance in a way that it could be understood, because what we're not talking about is the sort of more extreme violence that is sometimes seen, usually amongst teenagers and filmed and put online. That's it takes you into a different zone of what is potentially criminal behaviour as well. But the thing about bullying behaviours is sometimes they're never repeated, but they can be sustained. The threat can be sustained, sometimes just through a look, a glance, a fleeting glance, something that sends a signal to a young person that they should be worried, they're in danger. And this is not an exhaustive list at all. I'm sure you could add to it from your own experience of your own children. Thanks, Diane. But what we do know is that, all of those behaviours have an impact, and the impacts of bullying can be extensive. All of these things, I touched on them before, you've got mental upset, poor well-being, but also physical impact of bullying as well. Attainment is affected, aspirations. Children who have been bullied can get really withdrawn, and that is understandable because they don't quite know who to trust anymore. Their wee feelings can be completely overwhelming. This is a big deal for them. So it can come out even in aggression, or sometimes they might try to bully somebody else because they're seeing that behaviour and they think it's a way to respond. There can be lots of coping strategies can appear then, things like substance misuse and self-harm and eating disorders. And all of this is because of this sense of, taking away that feeling of control, let's say, the language of agency. I think it's quite likely for some children that if they've lost control in other areas of their life, depending on, what their domestic situation is, and, you never know what's going on for wee ones and the trauma that they're facing. But it's not uncommon for them then to try and regain that control somewhere else. I think, we all need an element of control in their lives, and children will try to recover that control somewhere else. Sometimes that means coming into school and bullying someone else. And that's not to excuse that behaviour, absolutely not. But it's to try and understand a wee bit more about it and to recognise that there's something going on from that child who's bullying someone else. It's typical behaviour is a form of communication, and what is it they're trying to communicate, and are they actually looking for some help? Because to bully other children is not normal. Destroying another person's confidence and self-worth is not normal. But we also need to just keep in mind we're dealing with children. They're not fully formed, they don't know everything yet, and they're trying their best to navigate what can sometimes be quite difficult relationships and bigger than they're able to cope with. So, keeping it all in mind can help you as parents to help your child, whatever the situation is. Thanks, Diane. I think it's useful to say what bullying isn't, and there's a whole section in the guidance about this. The guidance is set out to try to sort of disentangle and differentiate what is conflict, what is bullying, and what is actually, version towards, potentially criminal behaviour. So bullying is not, physical assault, sexual assault, hate crime. It's not just falling out. Kids will fall out and in all the time. That. Difference of opinion, wanting to do different things. They won't always agree. But that is much more like just kind of healthy relationship conflict that you work your way through. Well, I want to play football, well, I want to watch a film. So they come to some kind of compromise because it's in their interest. They want to keep that friendship. So there's usually a bit of give and take, a wee bit of compromise, and we'll play football today and we'll watch a film tomorrow. Something like that. The kind of yin and yang of relationships, which is not just for children, it's adults too. And we know that disagreements are sort of can be a natural and healthy part of positive relationships as well. Thanks, Diane. One of the things I did think it might be useful for you to understand as well is, although the definition has been clear and it's set out there, we know that bullying behaviour isn't always intentional. And children genuinely sometimes don't set out to cause harm. They don't know that what they've said or what they've done will not land well with another child, and it is hurtful. So, there is an aspect of kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt in some ways, but as I say, taking the focus away from a forensic examination of did you mean it, did you not mean it, just keeping really clear on whether you meant it or whether you didn't. Here is the harm that's caused, and that's what we would be telling sort of teachers and adult professionals to focus on, so that the child who's being bullied can get the right support in place, and that aspect is taken away. It also kind of, just it's an easier space to have a conversation. If you're saying, look, I don't know if you meant it or if you didn't, but here's what happened, and they're hurt as a consequence. We've spoken about persistence and, bullying behaviour. It depends on what's happened. It can be a one-off. The example we sometimes use is, if you're S1 and in your first day at high school, you have a bad experience, in the playground, then it might never ever happen again, but it can absolutely bring with it an anxiety and an anticipation that it could. So we allow for that within the guidance, we allow for it within the definition, and that also helps teachers as well, because, it's interesting, an older approach to, more old-fashioned approach to bullying would be, if a child discloses they've been bullying, an adult response might be, well, off you go and come back. If it happens again, come back and tell me. And that's not especially helpful for the child as a response. They're unlikely to come back and tell an adult again if they've been bullied because they didn't get a good response the first time. But also, when would we ever wait for a pattern of harm to develop? The sooner a teacher, an adult, a parent knows that there is bullying going on, it's much better to intervene as early as possible, get those supports in place, and let's not allow it to become a pattern of behaviour as well. Something that has been quite controversial in the news this week following the launch of the guidance is the section on labelling. So in the guidance, it talks about the language of bully and victim and why that is not helpful. And despite what the media might tell you, it's not a soft touch approach. It's a well-researched theme around about why it is not helpful to label children. It's not helpful for the child. Cliched as it is, labels do stick. So if you're 6 and you're labelled as a bully, that can carry straight with you right through your primary school career and into high school. And unfortunately, sometimes it's adults and sometimes it's parents who can keep that going. They'll talk about that child's a bully. And I understand that. I think, it's an easy shorthand for adults to use, and we've all got an image in our mind of that stereotype, what a bully looks like or what a bully might do. But the truth is, it doesn't help to change behaviour at all. It's, always curious to me that, an aspect of bullying behaviour is name calling. Yet we seem sometimes as adults to be quite easy about calling a child a name, like bully, without really thinking through the impact of that in the longer term. And similarly with victims, nobody wants to be a victim. When you're 7, you don't want to be a victim. It's far too easy to, embrace that sort of mentality and sort of embed it as a bit of a belief about yourself that, you are a victim. I'm always going to be a victim. Somebody's always going to be out to get me. And that's not so. So both of these terms are completely disempowering. They add nothing of value to the situation, and we absolutely recommend against not using them for those reasons. And that, again, as I say, written into the guidance and as part of most local authority policy positions as well. I say it's not new. This has been the Respect Me stance since 2007. And it is, I say, it's based on quite sound research. And finally, the other point to make is about most often bullying as a consequence of difference. Somebody perceives somebody else to be different in some way, and whatever that difference is can bring with it an aspect of prejudice and discrimination and hatred, whatever way that might play itself out. And it can be everything from, the more obvious things about disability, about gender, about race, but also, having ginger hair, having big ears, having freckles. We all carry our own prejudices and they come out in quite unusual ways sometimes. So this theme of this is really, for schools and organisations to know that where they identify prejudice at play, it needs to be addressed, it needs to be flushed out. There need to be conversations with children about diversity and equality and understanding what lies behind whatever prejudice it is that they're maybe holding. And that can sometimes come from families as well. Prejudice is a learned thing. We're not born with it. So helping children to understand and educate against prejudice and build a bit of empathy for the children to whom, there are prejudices against can also be helpful as well. So those are the sort of main themes that are particularly prevalent in the Scottish approach. Thanks, Diane. Obviously, bullying takes place now across several different sort of environments. It can be face-to-face bullying, which is still the most prevalent. Children still speak about face-to-face bullying being more common for them. So in a school, in a playground, in a club. But online bullying is also highly prevalent. And it's rare for a child to be bullied in a real life setting and not also be bullied in an online setting. It's the way that children's relationships work. I don't like you in real life, I'm not going to like you online. And actually, here's another platform where I can continue to bully you. if that is what they want to do. So I think it's, really helpful just to talk to your child about what they're doing online, where are they going, who are they talking to, what's happening there. Be curious about your child's online journey. In the same way as you would if they were, going up the town or going to a shopping mall or going to a park, you would usually be asking about who you're going to play with, how long you're going to be there, what kind of things are you doing. Going online is just the same. They're still going to a place, a virtual space where things happen. Good things happen. They hang out with their pals. It's a laugh. But bad things happen there as well. And just encourage them to think about their own behaviour, about before they post stuff and before they like and share stuff. What might that mean to another child? If there is a nasty comment up on an online platform, are they going to share it widely? Are they going to pass it round? That can be quite damaging, and what would they feel like if that was happening to them? Absolutely seek support from the school. So the guidance is quite clear about schools have not got the capacity to investigate every aspect of online bullying for every single child. It's not a reasonable expectation. But what schools are required to do is to support children if they're being bullied online or offline. So if for children who had been bullied online, that could affect their learning and their well-being in exactly the same way as it would be if they were being bullied face to face. So schools are expected to support those children, to put the necessary help in place, but not necessarily to go and investigate the whole and unravel all the stuff that's happened online, sometimes out of school, sometimes at weekends, because we know that schools and teachers are telling us, that stuff comes into school on a Monday that's happened over the weekend, and it's a continuation of other events in the community sometimes. So absolutely seek support. Save posts as evidence, and try to use privacy tools and settings. Children can be protected from online bullying to some degree by making the settings and the privacy tools on the platforms that they're on sort of tighter and more controlled. All of the big platforms, Snapchat, Instagram, WhatsApp, no, the other one, TikTok, sorry, have all got family centres on their apps. You can go to the family centre and you can get really great advice about how to set the controls, but also how to talk to your child about what's happening online for them as well. And, taking away access to the internet is an absolutely, normal reaction to what's going on as a way to protect your child. It's like, right, you're not getting online, I'm going to take your phone. You're not playing that game, whatever it is, where the bullying is happening. But it's not a long-term solution and it's not very realistic. So having, that connection with your young person, I'd say talking to them about what's going on is probably more beneficial in the longer term, building that relationship with them. Because we know that what happens online can be secretive, it can be concealed. There's so much more online now, things like transient messaging, sharing of images, things to be concerned about that actually go beyond bullying in some cases as well. So it's all about relationship and communication. Thanks, Diane. Just rattling through this. So, we've got a wee response checklist, which we encourage adults, teachers, professionals to use as well, but you can use it at home just to ask your child to inquire about what's been happening for them. What is the behaviour that's being going on? And excuse me, we've got a new website, and within the parents section on our website, we've actually got a wee template that you could print off and use just to kind of note those things down. It can be quite helpful sometimes if you are approaching the school to be clear about, right, here's what's been happening, here's the behaviour, here's how my child's feeling. But importantly, that third bullet point there, asking your young person, what do they want to happen here? Because sometimes they just want to tell you that something's going on, but they don't necessarily want you to, to dive in and try and fix it. They it's really important to hear what they want. What they will want most often is they want the bullying to stop. But so working with them and working with the school, if that's where it's happening, about how we can get that to happen, but also that the fourth bullet there about what would you like me to do to help you, but also asking yourself, what do you need to do about it? If you're concerned your child is at risk of serious harm, it can sometimes be a child protection concern. And you'll know yourself when it's, you need to escalate this and you need to escalate it quickly. But in the meantime, there are things about, that question, what would you like me to do to help you? So that might be, do you want me to talk to the school? What can we do to make you feel better in the meantime? Because when children spoke to us about their bullying experiences, they were really clear. They knew that the bullying was unlikely to stop right away because that's the nature of it. It can be prolonged. But they were really keen to hear about things they could do to help them cope while it was going on. So getting out with other friends, getting involved in activities, doing family stuff. Family is major for children who have been bullied. They really it helps them to be drawn into that family situation. Cook together, go for a walk, just do other things that take the focus off the bullying. And these are all really helpful strategies for parents. And the other thing is, it's good to inquire of your child. Do they think that there's something else they hear? Is there a prejudice? If your child, is maybe different from some of their classmates in whatever way that is, explore that with them. See what they believe and what they think is happening to them that might have influenced the behaviour that's being displayed towards them. Thanks, Diane. And again, just looking at that, trying to give a good response to your child, and that is actually about helping them to feel back in control of themselves again, because when children have been bullied, that sense of being all at sea, they don't know what's happening, they don't know when it's going to happen during the school day, outside school. They're on constant alert. Adrenaline is running really, really high through their wee bodies when they're being bullied. So trying to get them, an element of control back into their life, and giving them tasks, giving them responsibility, making them feel important. The bullying is one aspect of their life, it's not their whole life. And the role of parents to just help them get back about feeling themselves again, engaging in other groups. Most children have got different groups that they move across, so they'll maybe have I don't know, a dance class, a football group, or some other sports, or things that they do with different groups of children that are not their classmates. And those groups are usually, positive and reaffirming and reinforcing, that the bullying is not about them. It's never about them. It's not acceptable. It shouldn't be happening to them. They've done the right thing in telling you, and you can help them to just, to sort it out and to get it to stop over time. But these are all, things that you can do as families to help your child. Thanks, Diane. And we just sort of listed there some of the things that would be part of that good response. The wee graphic on the slide is some work that the Children's Parliament did a number of years ago now, when they worked with primary classes to investigate bullying. And these were the things that the children said that they felt adults could do to respond well. And it was about being alert, look out for those signs, listen. Can't stress listening enough. Staying calm when you can, absolutely understand that if your child's been bullied, the mother tiger, the dad tiger, it comes out, and that's normal. That is a totally natural response when your child is being hurt. But it doesn't help you to help them when you're in that really heightened state as well. So try, go in your kitchen, have a good scream, come back, be calm, and just give your child that empathy and reassurance that they need. Talk to them about the options, right? What are the things we can do here? What do you want to have? Do you want me to speak to the school? Do you want, me to speak to the other child's parents? Sometimes a good strategy if you know them, sometimes less so if you don't. Really listen to what they want. That thing about, reminding them of who they are, their personal strengths, all the great things about them, the stuff that everybody loves about them, all the positive qualities they have, because when children are being bullied, they can lose sight of those strengths as well. And absolutely, most important, restoring hope. Don't let them think that this is the way it's going to be forever. No one is bullied forever. But when children are being bullied, it can feel that way. In their wee bubble that they're in, they sometimes can't see beyond it, and they think this is a forever state. It's never going to change. It's never going to get better. And the task of adults is really to help children keep perspective on this. It's not a forever state. No one will be bullied forever. So keeping that in mind and helping them to get through what is just a really difficult patch, is a bad spell in their lives, acknowledging it absolutely, but keeping a future focus and just building. And the language of resilience is difficult. It can sometimes imply that a child is not resilient or weak, and that's a cause of being bullied, and that's not what we're saying here at all. But there are ways to help rebuild resilience. Those things that I talked about, giving your child their confidence back, getting them engaged in other things, can all help to just build them up a wee bit when they've been knocked down. Thanks, Diane. So with on my subject, I'm always first to say that, if a school contacts you and says your child's been involved in bullying, it's a difficult moment, because at that point you don't know if your child's being bullied by someone else or if they're bullying someone else. And as a parent, either side of that is horrible to hear. It's a really difficult conversation to have to have. But I think, if your child is involved bullying someone else, there are things you can do to try to understand, what's causing that behaviour, what's going on. Has something upset them? Are they unsettled? Have they lost control somewhere? Are they trying to get it back somewhere else? The things that we've already discussed. But also describing for them, this is behaviour that needs to change. It's not good. We know that research shows that children who bully others, it also impacts on them. They know that they're probably not behaving very well, and they are being mean and they are being unkind. But when they get stuck in that cycle, or sometimes, again, back to that thing about labelling, if you label a child as a bully, it can also confer status. They become that's a bully, everybody respects them, they're the coolest kid in the school. And having to live up to that is actually really difficult as well. So talking about the behaviour that needs to change, talking about the impact it's having on the other child, but also, your own family situation. Avoid, obviously we've spoken about this, avoid labelling them as a bully. It's never, your child never wants to hear you call them a bully. The language of bully is so weighted. It's just, leaden. It's like a weight around everyone's neck, and nobody likes to use that language to describe someone else or to be described as a bully. You can challenge any prejudice that's underlying, find out what they need to help them to change. What supports do you need to put in place to help them to change? How can you help them to do that? And, if they're having difficult feelings that are playing out through a bullying situation, what other ways can they kind of almost discharge those difficult feelings? Is there something else they can do to get rid of that is healthier for them and isn't going to result in another child being bullied? Thanks, Diane. So I think we've run through some of these things already. Trying to keep calm, focus on finding a solution. This is what you want, a solution for your child, absolutely. And you need to work with other people to get that solution. So finding out who's best to speak to in the school or the club or the coach, whoever it is, to explain what's happening and to work together on a plan to arrive at a solution that works for your child. And you can do that through arranging a meeting or through telephone. We always encourage parents, so we don't run a helpline at respectme, but parents sometimes phone us to ask about, well, the school policy says this, but they're doing that. And whilst we can't engage in those individual conversations about your child's experience, we can offer broad general advice, and we can absolutely help you navigate what a school policy says and match that to what your child's experience is. And if there's a mismatch, then that's, I suppose, the area to talk to the school about. It's like you say you're going to do this, but you don't actually do it. And so you're in breach of your policy, and how can we work together to make that better for children? Just understand from your child what information they actually want you to share with the school or the club involved. Children still worry about being the grass, they worry about being the tattletale, and we try to kind of frame that in a way that if you're telling an adult to keep yourself safe or to keep one of your friends safe, it's not the same as telling tales. It's not the same as grassing or snitching, because that's usually just get somebody into trouble, but it's malicious or malevolent. It's a different thing altogether. It's a much more positive thing to be a good friend and to help your friend if they're getting bullied, but also to help yourself by speaking up if you're getting bullied. And as you say, whoever you're working with, agree next steps and a time to review the situation. Don't let it go off the boil. Go back in and see what's been done. See if the whatever action plan is agreed, has it been followed through? Is your child feeling better? Has the situation changed? And so on. Thanks, Diane. I think I hope you're still with me, and I think we're nearly there. We're getting towards the end. We spoke a wee bit. Can you click again? Because I think there's more bullet points to come up. Yeah, thank you. We spoke about prevention, and prevention is, I say, that it's the best anti-bullying intervention that there is. And these are the sorts of things that you should be looking at for your schools and the places that your children go, other club settings. Are they promoting these values of fairness, respect, equality, inclusion? Can you see it? Is it, evident when you walk in the door? What are the school values? Are they living them? You can look at the curriculum. There will be lessons and sessions about health and well-being, and about positive relationships. It's probably not helpful for me to run through all of these bullets, and you're going to get the slides anyway. But all of these points can all combine towards creating a real anti-bullying culture, a really safe whole school community environment where children can go, they feel that they're safe. We know from some other work that we do, we have a Respect Me reward, which looks at schools sort of testing the gap between policy and practice. And we asked children as part of that in the surveys about how safe they feel. And we know that when we also ask the schools about what they do to prevent bullying. And there's a direct correlation between when schools are doing all these things like nurturing approaches and restorative conversations, lots of visual reminders, posters up, talking about bullying, keeping it on the agenda. Bullying can exist and thrive in secrecy when people don't talk about it and it's kept in the dark. And as you can imagine, our service is all about talk about it, get it out there. Let's just shine a big light on it. And the demons sometimes go into go away from the light when it's shown on them. So all of these things are the sorts of things that you would be hopeful that your school was getting involved in to prevent bullying from happening in the first place. Thanks, Diane. And as we said at the beginning, there was some options for some further help. So if you're concerned about online bullying, Internet Matters is a great website to go to. There are lots of others. The big tech companies like Vodafone, EE, they nearly all have advice for families about online bullying. I understand that Children First have just rebadged their helpline, so they run Childline, I think, and Parent Line. So I think now it's called Support Line. But the telephone numbers don't change. Everything's the same. I think it's just gone through a bit of a rebrand, which we haven't corrected our slides for yet. You'll be aware of Breathing Space, Samaritans, other online places that children can go to get some support. Childline, as well as having a telephone number to contact, has also got a web chat service for children, which is confidential. So if they're struggling to talk to you or another adult, they can go and do a bit of web talk, text talk, which they quite like because it's anonymous and they can use their sort of text talk words. And we have a guide for parents and carers. It's on our website. It's a publication. It's good. It's slightly out of date. We're in the process, now that the new guidance is published, we're refreshing all of our documentation, and this will get a refresh in the first 3 months of next year. So look out for the new version. But the current one, although it's slightly out of date, it's still a really good read, and you'll get lots of good information on it from it as well. So I think that probably brings me to the end, and we've got a wee bit of time for questions. Or there might be some questions in the chat, I'm not sure. Thanks so much for listening. I know that was a real rattle through.
No, that was so helpful, Lorraine. And actually, I thought it was a really good pace just to take us through step by step. So thank you so much for that. There was one question in the chat from Vicky, but just to encourage anyone else, there's still a few minutes left if you do have a question, or even if it's just about sharing some ideas, especially about moving forward, because I think this question from Vicky is quite a good question, because it's kind of like, with the new guidance, should schools now be reviewing their anti-bullying sort of policies? And both Tina and I were responding saying, yeah, it is a good time, but actually, just as you said in your presentation, you know, having this sort of conversation on the agenda on a regular basis is probably a good practice sort of action that could be led by parents in schools through their parent councils or their parent groups. What would you say about that, Lorraine?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the Cabinet Secretary launched the guidance last Wednesday, she was also tasking local authorities to go back and revisit their current policy. So the kind of hierarchy, if you like, is there's the national guidance that comes out from Scottish Government. Then local authorities are expected to review their guidance to reflect that position. And then individual schools are expected to review their policy so that it's in step with the local authority and the national guidance. So there's a kind of chain of events should happen there. And that is, I say, local authorities have been tasked to do that. They won't be on it right away, I think it's fair to say, but I know that in, I think, January, February, there is going to be some sort of meetings from the strategic leads across authorities, the directors of education, and I assume some timelines put against that. In the meantime, I am working to produce a sort of policy template to help local authorities just to have a sort of a more standardised approach, actually, that, you know, will be nuanced for their own geography, because every authority is different. We've got island communities, urban, rural, and they are quite nuanced in the geography. The demographic does actually affect some of the situations of bullying. So I'd like to see us, you know, some sort of core points within the policy, and then local authorities tailoring it to their own situations. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. Just while I'm waiting to see if there are any more questions in the chat, one of the things that I was going to ask, just in follow up to what you were saying there, was about sort of reviewing, you know, kind of impacts. Is there a way that the government or local authorities are going to be able to sort of review the impact of the new guidance? Do you know?
I think it's a difficult question. Another aspect of the new guidance, and again, the Cabinet Secretary majored on, was the need for better reporting, recording, and monitoring. And there's a whole chunk of the guidance talks to that, because when we did work with young people a couple of years ago for our campaign, their key ask was, can we have simple and safe and potentially confidential pathways to report bullying? Not all children know how to report a bullying incident, who to talk to within a school, and some might want to do that confidentially. And we know schools that have got great practice there. You know, there can be like physical post boxes in a discrete area. They can have virtual mailboxes. They can have QR codes. You know, technology is actually quite helpful sometimes in giving children ways to report, but you can only record what gets reported. And we also know there can be a reticence to reports because children are still a wee bit fearful of reporting bullying, because, again, when they've already lost a bit of control and then they report it or they tell an adult or disclose it, the risk is they lose more control, or the
Yeah,
adult steps in, or the parent decides, right, you know what, I'm going to sort this, and they are kind of like sidelined a wee bit
yeah.
while the adults sort things out. So the impact measurement, I think the measure will be in better reporting, better recording. The ask is for all incidents to be recorded. It's a massive ask. It has a huge impact on teacher resource, and we need to see how that will go. But CMIS is the management information system used in schools where these records should be made, and then it is a task of the school to sort of monitor what they're getting back by way of incidents reported. There's no intention for national aggregation. We're not going to look at this at a national level. It's very much local recording for local solutions at that granular level. You know, what's happening here in this school and how can we fix it at that level? And authorities will do a school-wide review for their area.
Thanks so much for that. Thank you. I think one question has come in just there, and it's probably quite an important one. So I was going to try and squeeze that in, if that's okay, just before we finish up. I know we're literally a minute or so away, but Steph was just saying, and I'm sure you've come across this, Lorraine, about this sort of misalignment of what bullying is, that sort of definition, and that kind of misalignment between, say, parents, children, and school staff, education staff, and where the response might just be just play or just go on and play, just be nice and play, when the perspective of the child or the parent might be that, you know, that it's been like name calling and something a bit more, you know, more than just not playing nicely, about how to kind of move past that sort of misalignment and those, you know, different perspectives of what is bullying.
Yeah, it comes up a lot because there is a disconnect, and it's actually written into the guidance. You'll find a bit there that says, sometimes, parents or, our children might say this is bullying or I'm getting bullied, when actually that's not quite what's going on for them. We should use impact as a guide. What is happening? Actually, how is it impacting them? That should be the guide for the adult to determine, when, to intervene and to intervene well. It's not uncommon for there to be misalignment, and I think that wee template that we put on our website can actually be a really useful tool for parents to take into school, because it can say, look, I've spoken to my child about this, I've asked them, what's happening here, what are the behaviours, how's it affecting you? And it also, it's a bit of a sort of tracking system that you can give that to school and say, right, I've recorded this with you now, I'm noting it with you. This is what's happening to my child and this is how it's impacting them. And, whether you get tied up and whether it's bullying or whether it's not, if you've got a child who's hurt by something that's going on and been impacted by it, that in itself merits investigation, whether it turns out to be bullying or not bullying. And schools are actually quite, I find that most of them are very good at that. They will respond to a child in distress, so try to listen and try to hear. And we thought about putting some examples into the guidance about, because the thing that comes up for us constantly is not being invited to birthday parties. And some children will perceive that as they've been bullied because they've been excluded. But oftentimes there's a real, reason for that. There's a limit on the numbers, it's difficult times economically. Or the activity is only for 4 children or 6 children. And so the birthday child has had to be quite selective about who's in and who's out. But so totally understand it's disappointing for children not to be included in things, but it's not always bullying. That's not. Maybe if there's other aspects of that situation that would lead to that conclusion, or if they're constantly excluded, it might be a need for further sort of investigation. So I know that's a bit vague.
No, I think the leading with the impact is a helpful response. What is the impact of the child, and the response needs to follow that, rather than say the label or the description, and that might help what the response needs to be. If the impact of the child is that they're distressed and upset, then the response has to be on that basis, that they're distressed and upset. So I find that kind of a helpful kind of way to look at it. Unfortunately, we're at 9:02 now, so there has been a bit of conversation in the chat there, and I guess this is the issue about, the kind of that misalignment and the sort of playing down sort of scenarios. But Tina's just putting in the chat about, parent councils can ask for information about reporting, and also, using the guidance, all the information, the guidance, these forms that are on the Respect Me website as well look really, really helpful as well. But parent councils can put anti-bullying strategies and policies as a broad topic, as a standard amount in the agenda, to continue to have these conversations and discussions, so that school communities can get this right for children. So I'm going to.
Sorry, Diane, just one thing, just as well. It's a wee bit of a challenge too, but I think the language of bullying is quite easy to use. And I think when your child's being, upset by another child, as parents, we can quite quickly jump to, or they're being bullied. And sometimes it's helpful just to take a wee step back and say, go through that wee checklist and say, is this actually, bullying, or is it something else that's going on within that wee relationship that's just a sort of temporary blip, and they just don't get along, they don't like each other. And I think it's a really important message for children, so you don't have to like everyone.
Yeah.
They won't get on, they don't always play together, they don't like the same things. And that's where the message of respect comes in. It's like, you can keep a healthy distance and respect them, but you don't need to play with them. or get along all the time. Sorry, just had to put my
No,
respect me message in at the end there.
no, absolutely, absolutely. There's a lot, there is a lot of nuance and complexity to these kind of scenarios, and it does take time to unpick. I'm sure you'd be welcome to come back again, Lorraine. There's lots to talk about. But I just want to say thank you so much to you just now, just before people start to come off the webinar, before I give a kind of formal finish, and just saying thank you once again for all your information here this evening, and the PowerPoint presentation will go out to all the attendees. If you are looking for more information specifically from respectme, we've put the link to the website in the chat. If you're looking for more information about your role as a parent group, there's a specific section in the guidance about engaging parents that is quite helpful. There's a helpful wee table there to have a look at. If you are a Connect member and you're looking for advice and support, then of course you can contact us in the usual way. But otherwise, now I'm just going to draw this to an end. A wee poll will pop up on the screen just now. It's about 3 questions. It'll literally take you 3 seconds just for us to get a bit of instant feedback from how you found the session. I think you said at the start, Lorraine, that hour was going to go by in a flash, and it certainly has gone by in a flash. But if people want to give some feedback about more sessions or something more specific about anti-bullying or guidance or the role of parents and parent groups, you could write it in your evaluation form to give us a pointer of what else that you've been looking for. But otherwise, it's just to say thank you again to Lorraine. Thank you to everyone coming along this evening and for asking those really important questions. And I hope to see you again very soon. Thanks very much.